Ebenezer Scrooge, awake! I am the ghost of the Mercedes-Benz winter event. Your time is running out. Come, I must show you the sleek CLA. Nice, said Scrooge. But I am kind of a Scrooge. No worries. The CLA offers true Mercedes performance at a surprising price. Or check out the GLC, an SUV with the full complement of technology and performance. Give your year the happy ending it deserves at the Mercedes-Benz winter event. Now at your Mercedes-Benz dealer. Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, folks. How are you doing? It's Danny Tisdale, and we're here again for the Danny Tisdale Show. And I hope you are doing extremely well during these holidays. And, of course, we're at that midpoint. Christmas is over, and New Year's is right around the corner. And I hope that if you're doing a resolution this year, that, you meet all your goals that you have, and, and all the best that comes with that. And let's get right into it. And, we love to have leaders, legends, and trailblazers on the show in the world of Harlem, and that's what we have today. And before I'm going to give you a hint, speak to her, I just want to make sure that you connect with us on Twitter at twitter.com/HWMag, on Facebook at facebook.com/Harlem World Magazine, and at the harlemworldmagazine.com. And, go to any of your social platforms and put in Harlem World Magazine. You should be able to find us. Like us, love us, share us, bring us into your world. And, I've been jittery for the last week and going back and forth because I'm really excited about our guest, Valerie Graves, from the projects of Michigan to New York's upper echelon as a high-powered advertising executive, now living in Harlem with her significant other. She is the author of her memoir, Pressure Makes Diamonds, Becoming the Woman That I Pretended to Be. I think was published in 2016. She's here. Of course, she'll correct me if I'm wrong. She is a legendary creative director, event producer, recognized expert in all facets of cultural advertising, an award-winning creative director that's targeted advertising campaigns for Fortune 500 companies in the automotive, fast food, banking, hair care, telecommunications, and other industries, all the things that affect our life. She's been a consultant in 1992 with the Bill Clinton campaign, so obviously politics, also recognized by Advertising Age as one of the 100 best and brightest award winners, a recipient of the 2007 Ad Color Legend Award. She does it all, super talented, and future goals, let me not exclude, but include involvement in global humanitarian and environmental campaigns. Hello, Ms. Graves. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm speaking to a leader, legend, and trailblazer, so I'm extremely excited, and I love the advertising industry, so this is, I've already had my New Year's wish come true, so it's great to, speak to you, and I want to get right into it. I'm always curious, with the leaders, legends, and trailblazers in Harlem, in United States, and across the globe. But who has inspired you most in the media work that you've done? Family members, mentors, or madmen since it's advertising?
Well, I will elaborate, but I guess I would have to say all of the above, because it's been a really long career for me. So at this point, it's been affected by a lot of people. And that, of course, started with, family, teachers, people at church. I think one of the things that we as Black people do that I just love and try to continue myself is really encourage kids that we kind of spot early as having some potential to do things. And I certainly benefited from that. People at my church were always encouraging me and putting me up to do things and, give a speech, do this, do that. And also, everyone has those teachers, some of whom I've written about in my book. a lot of people influenced me early on. When I got into the advertising industry, it basically was a white and male business, period. And I got in through a window of diversity that happened. So the only role models really who were available to me were basically white males. They were men who changed the industry. And so initially, in the part of my career that I kind of describe as my life as a white guy, I wanted to be the next Bill Bernbach or Jerry Delafamina or, some of those guys.
Right. Those names,
and, Yeah. Then later on, after I got into multicultural, which what I like to say is when I got into advertising, I found my profession. But when I got into advertising to people of color, I really found my calling. And there was a whole different set of heroes there, the Tom Burrells and Carolyn Joneses,
right?
Who were really pioneers in the business. They also became real role models for me. So a lot of people influenced me, and I thank them all.
Yeah, and that's really great. And I guess in some ways it might be surprising to some people, and in other ways it's not surprising. And I know that we have 30 minutes, and I love conversation and the process, and I'm just going to move forward because there's so much to talk about. Can you tell us a bit about your book, Pressure Makes Diamonds, Becoming the Woman That I Pretended to Be? And I specifically wanted to get that last in. I was curious about that, pretended to be, but I think you may have given us a hint in your first answer. But can you talk a little bit about your book?
Well, the book is basically a memoir of my life and career because it isn't a very typical journey. I was not, and when I say typical, I mean just like straight point A to point B to point C kind of life journey. I'm not Michelle Obama. I'm just a fan of hers, but my story is very different from hers. And the pressures of my life basically came, for any person of color of my generation born around the mid-century point, is that we face discrimination and certain disadvantages a lot of the time. And so that's no different for me. So there was that pressure. But also I had a child when I was 16 years old. So I went from being, this little girl of whom a lot was expected because I was very precocious and articulate and got great grades and all of that. And I kind of went off of that path at 16. And I guess I would say that the people who had the highest hopes for me kind of gave up on that. I mean, nobody was mad at me. It certainly wasn't unusual for a girl of that age to have a child, but it did cause people to say, well, I guess all these great things that we were hoping for you are not going to happen.
That's not her, right. I can imagine.
Yeah, and so that was very motivating to me in and of itself. What do you mean it's not going to be me? And it caused me to work harder. But, of course, there was that pressure, of being a parent at such a young age that was added to everything else that was going on for someone like me. So that's the pressure part of Pressure Makes Diamonds, that and the pressure of being a black person, a black woman in a white male business that came after I got into advertising. But the woman that I pretended to be part of it, I am happy to talk about because people often assume that what I mean is a kind of standard fake it till you make it. And it's not, that's not exactly what it means. What it means is that, when I was a child and growing up, there wasn't a Michelle Obama. There was no Oprah. There were not these role models that I could look at and say, well, I want to be like her, so let me look at her and model myself after her. So I had to kind of create this person that I wasn't yet, but hope to become, and keep trying to grow into her. And this was always someone who was a little bit better than me, in a lot of ways, spiritually a better and a more evolved person.
I see. Yeah.
More accomplished than me, wealthier than me, all of those things. And so there was always this person that I was pretending to, but I wasn't necessarily out there, just like faking it until I made it. I learned how to do something that we all do in advertising, which is put the best face on everything. You can focus on certain truths in your life as opposed to others. And let's say I tended to do that. But I was just always pretending to be a better person in a lot of ways, pretending up.
Yeah, and I really understand that. And I remember my football coach telling me, use that chip on your shoulder, in a positive way. And I know sometimes, depending on where you're born and depending on, maybe where your job is and who you're working with, there can be a chip on your shoulder, and it's how you use that chip. And it sounds like you've used it in a way to, get you to where you needed to be. And those are my words, obviously, saying a chip on your shoulder. But I also wanted to add, too, is that, as we looked at the book, your book, should I say, Pressure Makes Diamonds, Becoming the Woman That I Pretended to Be, there was nothing but 5-star ratings for the book. So I really commend you for the work and being as honest and direct as you have been, both in the podcast and the book. Yeah.
One of my absolute heroes is Maya Angelou, because her book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, came into my life at exactly the right moment when I was trying to figure out how I could ever get to the life that I had always wanted from where I was. And Maya Angelou, who had a similar journey in a lot of ways, was a great inspiration to me. And her book was, I would say, brutally honest. And as I was writing, I just had to make decisions all the time. Am I going to tell the truth, or am I going to tell a fairy tale version of something? And I decided that I'd rather tell the truth.
And I'm going to use that as a segue, because I read somewhere a quote from you, and I think it was in an interview, where you said authenticity is the key. And I don't know if that was relating to your life or relating to advertising, but what did you mean by that?
Well, I think
authenticity is the key.
I think probably in the quote that you saw, I was referring to work, to advertising. Okay. As Black people, we've been portrayed a whole lot, but we haven't necessarily been depicted as we really are. Right. And so when someone does that in advertising, it's extremely effective when you're speaking to us. And that was what that quote, authenticity is key, was about. And I also found it to be just a tremendous advantage for me as a creative and as a creative director, and for our agency as an agency. We had a role, our little role was to speak to the Black audience. And the big general market, and that's a euphemism for big white agencies, still often just wanted whatever little piece of the pie we had, they wanted that too. But I had a determination that they would never out-Black me, because what I know
the original,
about being Black, is authentic. Comes from a deep place. It's not a matter of a culture that, may or may not be passing. Something like hip-hop in the 80s, whether it was going to be around now as it still is. But it didn't matter to me, because whatever is Black is of me, and I am of it. And I know that I can do that better than any person who's not a person of color can do it.
Yeah, that's a excellent point, and it is amazing that as you speak truth in advertising, in almost any media, of course, I'm more attentive to that commercial or that print media, whatever it may be. Is that the key to Oprah's success, that authenticity, or am I off track here in kind of connecting the two?
Well, I don't think you're off track. I came to New York just about the time that Oprah was really taking off in the mid-'80s, and I remember going to an event where she was speaking. And one of the things that Oprah did was walk around and talk to people. She was talking to you. She'd put her arm around you. I always felt that Oprah's great gift was empathy. And nothing that she's done has changed that, although now empathy has been combined with great business sense, incredible business sense. But when Oprah gave away those cars, and that was done by an agency that I joined because they did that car giveaway, Vigilante, you felt that Oprah still understood what it meant to those people to get a car, a free car. You know, even by that point, I'm sure she was, if not a billionaire, she was approaching that status. That when she said that you get a car and you get a car and you get a car, you really felt that she genuinely, understood what that was going to mean to someone's life, to think they were just going to a TV taping and walk out with a car. Right. So,
it's not like a game show.
Right. Yes, she's authentic, but she also has empathy. Well, that's interesting, you know, because if I'm watching Family Feud and those people win $20,000, I feel like Steve Harvey has a great gift of empathy with what it means for those people to walk out of there with $20,000 or drive out, as he says, in a brand new car. You know,
that's right.
Empathy is very akin to authenticity, and both of them, you know, have great currency with people of color.
Yeah, and that, I think, Valerie, you bring up so many great points about that, and it, you know, I think it's just true. And, you know, as we talk about authenticity, I want to circle back to that. I just want our listeners to know that they're listening, obviously, to the Danny Tisdale Show. I'm Danny Tisdale. They're listening to Harlem World Radio, and we're going to get right back to our guest, Valerie Graves, legendary advertising person, woman, and continues that work. And we're having a great conversation here about authenticity. We, the first half, talked about that, and you know, authenticity is key, something that you mentioned, and I asked you about Oprah and authenticity. And I guess authenticity is one of those things that never gets old. If you can have the empathy, I think you said that is funneled through authenticity. You know, and I have to tell you that for a year, we've been, you know, rewriting what we do at Harlem World Magazine. Funny, you know, in a not ha-ha way, but in an interesting way, it is authenticity we're trying to bring back to, you know, what we do as we kind of lost our way along the way. And I wanted to, you know, kind of go forward here and ask you, you know, I asked you as we opened about an inspirational kind of question about who inspired you in the business. And I wanted to ask you in this new year that's approaching, when you think back to your future self, what advice would you give her?
Keep growing.
That little girl from Michigan, I guess, right?
To be creative, to be fearless, to keep growing. I mean, I think that a lot of the early success that I had, as I put it, is just because I was too stupid to, like, know what I couldn't do. You know, from those
I
years
shouldn't be doing that. I'm going to do it anyway.
Or you can't do it, you know, from those early years of getting so much encouragement from teachers and people at church and all of that. I think I accepted the notion of exceptionalism, you know, so I just figured that, you know, maybe someone else couldn't do it, but let me get in the room and talk my way in, you know. So I think fearlessness. And, even if you feel fear, just do it anyway,
Do it.
Quincy Jones said, jump off the cliff, you'll realize you can fly. But if you don't jump, you'll never know that.
You never know, right.
There are a lot of things. I moved from Detroit to Boston only to find that I was the only black creative professional in the city of Boston, period. My boss took me out for a drink at the end of my first week and said, where the hell did you come to Boston? This is the least likely place for you to find a job.
Right.
So I did things that they're scary in hindsight, and they might have been scary at the time, but I just did it anyway. So do it anyway is a nice motto to have.
So I'm going to spin that a little bit, Valerie, because and ask you in a different way, and maybe it's the same advice. Is that the advice that you would give to young men and women who want to follow in your footsteps, whatever little town they may be in or city, and they want to come to New York or a big city to work in advertising? Is that what you would tell them? Go for it?
Yeah, because why not? Because why not? And a long time ago, I entered something called the Mademoiselle Magazine College Board competition. There have been some very famous writers who came out of that, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And I said to a young white friend of mine,
Valerie?
I'm going to enter.
Hello?
Yes.
Uh-oh. Miss Jarrett?
Yes. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Hello, Valerie. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened there, but the call was dropped and we're reconnected. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. It may have been at my end too.
Well, yeah, it was just about what would you use that same advice as going forward for any young man or woman who wanted to follow in your footsteps?
I would, and what I was getting at was that I told someone I was going to enter a competition once, but I figured that I probably wouldn't win. It was a young white woman, and she said, well, why wouldn't it be you? Why would you think someone else is better than you? Why not you? And that's how I feel. If you feel that you have the talent and the drive and the motivation and realize that it's not going to be handed to you, and that things may not be fair and that it may take you, longer to get your opportunity. Conversely, you may get an opportunity because someone is looking to create more diversity in an organization or a situation. So I would say go for it, because I always say go for it. And, don't allow self-doubt to hold you back.
That terrible disease of self-doubt that can infect you and stop you. And we're down to, of course, our last few minutes here, and I've got, of course, about 50 other questions for you. But, I wanted to just spin off of what you mentioned when we talk about diversity. When we talk about diversity, and you mentioned diversity, and I thought about, wow, we've really come a long way when I look at TV ads and there's a black man and a white woman and, a blended child. I know we wouldn't have seen that 10 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, but not that it's every other commercial, but we are definitely seeing it more than we, used to see it 5 years ago. It's quite amazing. And thanks to work like yours.
Well, I want to take a little bit of issue with that, because I think that casting like that is, it's okay, but it's speaking to a very general audience. And what that is, for the most part, is the white advertising industry's response to the demographic changes in America, to the fact that the country is becoming more of color. But the work that I did and the work that I loved most was the work that was directed specifically to African American consumers. So when you see that that casting, those interracial couples and all that, realize that that also is a result of less advertising that's speaking directly to you and about things that you specifically as a person of color, as an African American, really care about. So there's less of that because there's more of this just casting, you know. So in every cast, you know, there's a black person. But are they talking about anything that particularly is meaningful to you? Probably
Definitely
not, because they're trying to talk to everyone.
That's an excellent point.
The work that we did, like one commercial that comes to mind was one that kind of helped really bring back Buick, featured an African-American interior designer named Michael Burton. Introducing the Buick Enclave. We had a soundtrack by Oleta Adams singing a Nina Simone song. That kind of work, which was record-breaking in terms of effectiveness, is the kind of work that I love doing. It's what I really built my career on. And there's less of that going on now.
And why do you think there's less of that going on? Because they don't understand it, or...
No, because they don't see the need for it. They don't understand how deep a phenomenon culturally it is to be a person of color, to be an African American in particular. They underestimate the opportunity, you know, and if you don't know how to do something, you tend to minimize it. It also coincides with basically the disappearance of the kind of agency that I work for, you know, the Uniworlds and the Mingo Jones type agencies and stuff like that. They're really having a tough time of it now because white agencies are saying, "Hey, we got this covered. You know, look at that interracial couple, and they, you know, and their racially ambiguous friend there, and that kind of person." Well, that isn't what those agencies did at all.
Yeah. Right.
And
I laugh at the racially ambiguous figure because I know how real that is. I'm sorry, you were go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no. You know, what culture does a racially ambiguous person come from that you can reference in a commercial? You know, well, if they're ambiguous, then so is their culture. So you don't have the role models and heroes and folkways or anything of a culture that you can draw upon to make your communication deeply meaningful.
Valerie, we have literally 2 minutes here, and can you talk a little bit about what they're calling, because you made me think of, well, what's going on in Atlanta, where it seems that, what do they call it, Black Hollywood, they seem to be nudging and nurturing a niche. What's happening there that isn't happening in other places? You have any ideas what's going on there?
You mean why it's happening in Atlanta?
Yeah, why it's happening in Atlanta, and it seems to be growing and happening in Atlanta. Any ideas there, or any connections in relationships?
Cultures do spring up, and Atlanta, probably since I was still in my teens, started to become this real center of Black power and creativity, first politically, you know, and then, of course, the music scene really took hold there, and creative people tend to flock together like birds of a feather, you know. So, you know, there's part of it. There's Donald Glover and everything that he's done with his show, Atlanta, that has tended to big that place up. But I'm happy to see it. My nephew, Qasim Basir, is a young filmmaker, and that's his world. That's his culture.
Valerie, I'm going to stop you because we're at our last 30 seconds, and I just want to give you your URL and for people to catch and grab your book. So can you give that in these last 30 seconds?
Sure. You can reach me at ValerieGravesBook.com, and that will lead you to a place where you can purchase the book. It's on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Walmart.com. Everywhere. Twitter is Valerie Graves Book. Instagram is Val Graves Book. So I'm out there. And
thank you, Valerie, for being on the show. We've hit that mark. Thank you for being on the show, and the best of the new year to you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, and same to you.
Ebenezer Scrooge, awake! I am the ghost of the Mercedes-Benz winter event. Your time is running out. Come, I must show you the sleek CLA. Nice, said Scrooge, but I am kind of a Scrooge. No worries, the CLA offers true Mercedes performance at a surprising price. Or check out the GLC, an SUV with the full complement of technology and performance. Give your year the happy ending it deserves at the Mercedes-Benz winter event. Now at your Mercedes-Benz dealer. Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. Ebenezer Scrooge, awake! I am the ghost of the Mercedes-Benz winter event. Your time is running out. Come, I must show you the sleek CLA. Nice, said Scrooge, but I am kind of a Scrooge. No worries, the CLA offers true Mercedes performance at a surprising price. Or check out the GLC, an SUV with the full complement of technology and performance. Give your year the happy ending it deserves at the Mercedes-Benz winter event. Now at your Mercedes-Benz dealer. Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing.